Welcome to Bible Over Brews, deep thoughts fermented over time and text. Tonight, magic. And we come to you, we've got George.
Hello.
Gumby.
Hey, what's up?
Steve.
I'm back.
Mike.
Hey there.
And I'm Aaron. My wife is listening over my shoulder. We are going to be starting with Masthead once again. The Hazelrod Angel Pumpkin Ale. Okay, got that right. It's the Hazelrod Angel Pumpkin Ale. This actually smells delicious. We've already poured it. The Hazelrod Angel at Lakeview Cemetery is said to bring bad luck to anyone who touches it. Our pumpkin ale will do you once better and is brewed to bring good luck to those who drink it. It is an amber ale mashed with oodles of pumpkin and spiced with cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger. A true fall treat with a silky mouthfeel that will leave you yearning for those cool fall nights and perhaps brave enough to touch the Hazelrod Angel if you dare.
Here comes the accent. Go ahead, do it, Aaron.
Well, that's coming.
Oh, man, that's really good.
That's actually excellent.
That's rich. It's not bad, but I'm not exactly yearning for anything like the advertisement said. But it's good. It's good.
Yeah, everything at Masthead's delicious.
Tastes just as good as the last time I had it.
I like the nice amber look to it as well. It's almost got like a nutmeg hue to it.
Yes, we could taste the nutmeg. It later comes as you breathe.
And even though it's a pumpkin ale, it's not as what do I want to say?
Pumpkin-y?
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Right,
No, I was just
exactly.
about to say that.
Yeah.
It's not like drinking butternut squash or something, you know.
Well,
Yeah. Still pumpkin.
Yeah.
Like really.
I honestly
Not that I
don't.
hate pumpkin. I love pumpkin. But
I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the pumpkin ales.
Right.
I like it when it's more of
un-American.
Well, I like it when it's because most of them are too overbearing. I like
agree.
it.
Like
yeah,
fatheads, yeah. They're too pumpkin-y for me.
yeah. A few of them are just a little bit too pumpkinish. When it's a beautiful accent like this, that's enjoyable.
I think I really do like
Yeah.
fatheads too.
Well,
Yeah.
when you drink it though, you don't feel like you're drinking a pumpkin pie.
No, it's sweet, but it's not overly nutmegged like
Correct.
some other stuff.
Yeah, right.
But this one does bring with it, and it's not a bad thing. It does have a bitterness afterwards, so there's this bitter value, but it's still really good. And when you first start drinking it, it's like it's not, I wouldn't say smooth, but it has really good depth to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being slapped in the face with some pumpkin after I swallow. Yeah, wouldn't mind at all. But it is good. But yeah, I like those pumpkin ones that we're talking. Fatheads, pumpkin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own. That's why there's so many kinds of
I just
beer,
leave?
right?
Should I just exit the
No,
room?
no,
Oh,
not
okay.
at all, not at all. Honestly, I haven't had Fatheads this year yet, so I can't compare. I know they change a little bit seasonally, and even from year to year, it changes a little bit. So
Now, Kentucky bourbon makes a great pumpkin ale.
I do enjoy that one. Travelers makes a nice pumpkin shandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, but that is good. So, Magic, the Gathering, since we're all here, right? What are your thoughts on Magic, people?
Doesn't exist.
Okay, there's one.
Often, a lot of the Old Testament stories, we were just at church, we were talking about Elijah today on how he challenged Baal to, a duel, like, hey, my God versus your God, and he poured water all over his sacrifice, and up went flames, and it just sort of harkened me back to the Exodus, where the magicians were competing with Moses as he was, working God's miracles, and they were able to kind of stand toe-to-toe with a lot of the miracles, and I think it has a big part in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the magicians, I sometimes wonder, because that one goes back and forth. Were they actually using staffs, or there supposedly there is a way to train a snake to hold its body stiff.
Right.
So were the magicians actually holding staves that changed to snakes, or were they simply hypnotized snakes?
They did that in the second
drugged.
Harry Potter.
Or drug? Yeah, there we go. Or drug.
They did that in the second Harry Potter film. With the
They
Chamber
did.
of Secrets, I think.
They did. And the big python, the last two.
You're right.
Weren't they called props?
No, that was real.
Sleight of hand was a little more difficult back then. So the first one on topic, I bring this one up first because honestly, I'm probably gonna take a little slack on this one, but I think
I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you then. Whatever it is, even if I agree with you, I'm gonna just be devil's advocate and just go the other.
Please do.
Yeah, I don't want you to know what direction I'm gonna come at you from.
Please do. I find
Remember,
Wicca.
He is younger than you.
Right.
Actually, the argument would go the other way. I'm Spartacus.
I find Wicca to be the most watered down, blasé form of magic out there. I find it to be more of like the Lilith Fair female empowerment propaganda piece, more so than actual magic. I could be wrong. I don't think I am.
Can you help me out then and help me understand what is the definition of Wicca then? Like to a term. I guess I have an idea. If we're going to discuss, I just want to know exactly what I'm.
Absolutely.
What's the claim?
Absolutely. Well, here, let me read a little bit for you.
Thank you.
Although there were precursors to the movement, the origin of modern Wicca can be traced to a retired British civil servant, Gerard Brousseau Gardner, in 1884 to 1964. Gardner spent most of his career in Asia, where he became familiar with a variety of occult beliefs and magical practices. He also widely in Western esoteric literature, including the writings of the British occultist Aleister Crowley. Returning to England shortly before the outbreak of World War II, Gardner became involved in the British occult community and founded a new movement based on reverence of nature, the practice of magic, and the worship of a female deity, the goddess, and numerous associated deities such as the Horned God. He also borrowed liberally from Western witchcraft traditions. Following the 1951 repeal of England's archaic witchcraft laws, Gardner published Witchcraft Today in 1954, founded his first coven of followers, and with input from its members, especially author Doreen Valente, developed modern witchcraft into what it is today known as Wicca. It spread quickly to the United States in the late 1960s when an emphasis on nature, unconventional lifestyles, and a search for spirituality divorced from traditional religions were especially in vogue. So that kind of should give you a bit of an idea of where Wicca comes from.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually have an aunt who's Wiccan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of my aunts is Wiccan. And she like most Wiccans, she tries to say, well, our pagan, religion dates back further than anybody else's religion, which just isn't, as you can see, what I just read off shows you that's not so. There are certain traditions that you may be able to harken back further, like the Druidic practices over in Ireland and parts of Europe, but Wicca, as it is established, is brand spanking new to our time.
Is there any reputable Wiccans that aren't like emotional emo high school girls?
I was looking for some online, and I really couldn't find any.
I'm around, some people who claim to be Wiccans and things like this, and as you say, it's a lot of misdirected emotions. Exactly what it is. You're totally correct on that. That realize that. So what it is that traditional religion has fallen short for them, and so they use this as I'm doing this now.
Right. And for me, it seems like, and again, I don't want to make a large blanketed statement by the small amount of experiences I've had, but it seems like to me, like you said, it's maybe some misdirection, some emotions, and almost just seems like an effort to kind of counterculture.
Yes,
That would be my interpretation of.
I'd say that's pretty spot on.
Okay.
See, I just think of Lilith Fair and women who don't like to wear deodorant.
Wow.
I mean, I would say primarily the Wiccans I do meet. They
I
are.
was glad it was Juice and not me.
I mean, admittedly, the most of the Wiccans I meet are female. They do seem to wear deodorant, but
What stereotype
Wiccans?
busted already?
yeah, I've probably come across 5 in my life. One was a man. I mean, he was a comic book writer and did seem sort of that anti-culture sort of thing. And like Steve said, I feel like at some point they all have been burned by Christians,
Yes.
and I feel like they just
Both literally and
wanted to-
figuratively.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. Set you up for that. Yeah, that was really good.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, none of them really have this foundation, and they don't even seem to really embrace Wiccanism or Wiccaness as much as you would think, but they would just say, oh, we worship the environment as our goddess.
Well,
Or the crystals and things like that.
Well, they are. Yeah, they are polytheistic in their beliefs. So they believe in multiple gods.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Are they really turning to, being a Wiccan because they're really just rejecting traditional Christianity?
No,
Yes.
no, they believe in the old gods. Is really what it comes down to.
So there's really a tie that they believe what happened in the Old Testament and all those stories, that there's legitimacy to it.
Well, I mean, theirs is more based towards the pagan gods.
Okay.
Like I said, Druidic beliefs and the old cultures. Well, here, let me read a little more for you. Despite variation within Wiccan community, most believers share a general set of beliefs and practices. They believe in the goddess, respect nature, and hold both polytheistic and pantheistic views. Most Wiccans accept the so-called Wiccan Rede, an ethical code that states if it harms none, do what you will. Wiccans believe in meditation and participate in rituals throughout the year, celebrating the new and full moon as well as the vernal equinox, summer solstice, and Halloween, which they call Samhain. Wiccan rites include invoking the aid of the deities, practicing ceremonial magic, and sharing a ritual meal. Most controversial to outsiders is that Wiccans call themselves witches, a term which most Westerners identify with Satanism. As a result, Wiccans are continually denying any connection with Satan or devil worship. Wiccans have also attempted to establish ties with other polytheistic, like Hindu, and nature-oriented, like Native American, religions and communities.
Interesting.
And that is from Britannica. So they do hold on to both, like I said, polytheistic and pantheistic. They do also believe in like the pantheon. Pantheon, think of Greek gods, where they had a pantheon of gods that enacted together or sometimes fought each other. But they hold on to both sides of that belief, and it does vary a little bit from coven to coven, sometimes considerably.
Interesting.
But would you think that, speaking of modern Wiccans, at least that's been my exposure with them, do you feel that this is an easier belief for them than just believing as the traditional Christian views? One God.
It's kind of hard. It's treading a lot of water because now that opens a whole new subject matter.
It does.
Okay, so in the Christian sense, the term God is misconstrued.
Yes.
God, it actually comes from the Greek gut, right? It actually means to invoke a spirit. So once you go into the Old Testament, Elohim is the word for God, but it also just literally means a disembodied spirit. The difference was that there was Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, who was the creator spirit. So it gets a little misconstrued. We'll pull a whole episode on that. So we're not going to rabbit trail in this too much.
Digging a big hole.
Yeah,
here, buddy,
we're not
you
going to
know?
rabbit trail too much in this. So on meaning of God, we'll cover that in a different episode
Yes.
because that's a many-tiered animal.
Yeah, what I'm saying though is that it's in a sense of their thought process. We as traditional Christians believe in Yahweh.
Mm-hmm.
So just say Yahweh and that, you know, that's who it is.
There we go.
So with that, whereby because of the distrust of Christians or whatever, or things that happened to them that, you know, they were disenfranchised or whatever, who knows whatever reason it was, and there's many multitudes of them, that they chose that this is a much easier way because there's a multitude to believe in.
Well,
And I could, you know, nature. It's easy.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's so much that. I mean, it's like if we look at from our side, the Christian side, it's not as easy because we're
No, it's
talking
not.
about an invisible creator God, something we can't see.
Correct.
So on the nature side of it, I could see where it's a little easier because
That's a good
you
point.
see what you believe in.
Right.
So you can attach a different meaning to something that you can see.
It's materialistic.
Right. So I could see where that's much easier to coincide your belief with that. There's a tiger. Okay, well I believe in the spirit of the tiger. You know, you have association. So I could definitely see where you could create a deeper set quite quickly if you were not familiar with the idea of an invisible entity. So
So, in the broad sense, magic, from the Christian point of view,
okay.
if we look back all the way to the Old Testament, which I'm not even sure if we can have the argument that is Christian in the Old Testament. Well, that's another episode. Are we to look at all the stories like we heard today, Mike, in church, anything that's not attributed to Yahweh in his doing
Mm-hmm.
is magic? If anyone else has magical powers, that could, is that what magic is, and is it bad because it's not Yahweh?
Well,
My
by
quotations, you don't see them, but
by
I'm doing.
definition, and this is where actually I don't have slides for this. So we're gonna just go off the cuff.
Cool.
On this side of it, I find it very interesting because magic, by definition, would be pulling powers or energies from a deity that has more ability outside of yourself. That would essentially be what it is. And you'll find every single culture that professes magic is taking it from a deity.
So in some sense, the passage that Gumby's talking about that was spoken at church this morning, which I wasn't there, but I didn't hear it, but I'm very familiar with the passage though, is that is magic.
It could be defined as such.
Yes. Based on the definition that you had just spoken, that's what it would sound like.
Mhm.
Pulling powers from a divine
Absolutely.
divinity.
For example, divining, to know the future, divining, right? Almost every religion and culture has an idea of divining the future or divining the divine will. That's where actually where divining comes from, right? Trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future or what you should do. That's like in every single culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even down to water dousing, right? So, well, it is actually acceptable to the followers of Yahweh in the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, do
Because
we legitimize it, or is it
yeah.
sin?
Well, think about it. There's the Urim and the Thummim in the Old Testament, right? And the priest kept those inside of his vestment. So if he needed to know the will of God, he would cast the Urim and the Thummim. So that's divining, right? So it's the devotion to the deity that defines whether or not it is appropriate or not. So the reason why other magics were forbidden, and this is going to be very controversial right here. I know we're probably going to get some backlash, but
Bring it.
yeah, if you're looking at the reason why it was condemned from others, it's because it's literally loyalty to a different deity. That's the whole idea of the reason why it was not allowed was because it's loyalty to a different deity.
Because Yahweh states that thou shalt have no other gods except me,
Right?
because I'm a jealous God.
Yeah.
So that your loyalty, and that's the crux of being a Christian, is your loyalty is to Yahweh,
Exactly.
not to other deities.
I mean, that went all the way into the New Testament too. Think about it. They lost one of the apostles, right? Judas.
Yes. Well, there were. There's.
Well, hold on. They lost him, right?
Yes, they did.
And they had to figure out between two different disciples who would be the next apostle.
Right.
How did they figure that out?
They casted lots.
Yeah, exactly. So even into the New Testament, they were still using that process, that procedure. So, but their loyalty was strictly to Yahweh. So once again, it's about your loyalty to the deity rather than the intrinsic idea of magic itself.
But even as Christians, though, we I know as I'm sure we all come to these points. We realize that we come to these like forks in our road in our life. Like, what direction do I go? And you have to these hard decisions that you have to make, and so then you cast what's called a fleece, just to see which direction to go. And God, in some miraculous way, shows. Usually, sometimes, and or usually, if you don't hear an answer, it means just stay right where you are.
Yeah. Well, and it changed, if you think about it, right around Pentecost, because that was when the Holy Spirit came to mankind.
Correct. And
you didn't have to rely on divining methods after that. So that's really when everything shifted. That was the coming together of the Jews that was professed.
Mm-hmm.
That was the ushering in of the new kingdom. That was, all that stuff was culminated right there at Pentecost. So
you're saying we don't have to cast lots anymore?
No, we don't have to cast lots, but I think there are times in our lives when we have decisions. We come to these, as they say, the forks in the road, where you want to take the best road. You have a good road and you have a better road, but you want to make sure you're on the better road. And so through prayer and just agonizing and to say which way do we go.
Yeah, usually when most Christians cast lots now, it's at the casino.
Well, yeah. And we'd be surprised.
We know who has the magic there. Right? It's the house.
Well, I mean, with Wiccanism and magic, I always thought, when I talk to the people that I know, that it's almost like a karma religion where sort of the negative feelings or this or that, but a quick Google search shows that it is more mysticism than that. I just came across a flying spell where you collect dove feathers and willpower and stuff like that. So it is full-blown what I would consider witchcraft, thinking you can do these things.
Now, going back to what Juice had mentioned, I thought, weren't we going by the definition that you had to, that power comes through a deity?
Correct.
So, if they did have this power, wouldn't it have to come through Yahweh?
Oh, it depends on whatever deity they have loyalty to.
But it couldn't really happen unless their god was Yahweh, right?
Why?
Well, wouldn't that make it multiple gods? Is that something where?
So are you saying Yahweh can only be the real God?
I don't know if I'm saying that's what I guess I thought. Sorry, let me back that up. I was under that impression.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then we said he's a jealous god. So now we're saying that there's other gods,
multiple gods, right?
Oh,
that have powers.
All right, I'm learning.
Well, the Bible actually never says.
It's all right, it's a new discovery for me too.
Yeah.
You should have just played it off, man. You should have been like idiot over here. Like, come on, George, read your Bible.
The Bible actually never says there are not other gods. It does, and we're going to do this in a near episode coming up. It does define who those gods are, but it never refutes that there are other
That's
gods.
interesting. And why is it Yahweh is a jealous God? Does it actually say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Does he want us to be jealous?
It's actually very simple, because if you have a fealty to another god, he can no longer protect you. So he's jealous because he can no longer, protect you.
Okay, gotcha.
He can no longer take care of you. He can no longer provide for you. He can no longer once your fealty goes to another being, you're out of his hands.
Okay, interesting. Oh,
Jealousy is an English term. I feel like
Yeah,
it doesn't do
there's a-
justice.
Gotcha.
There's a
probably
better way to
deeper.
define
That's
it.
fair.
His love for you is so great that by you turning to other deities, it breaks his heart.
To the point where he'll kill you.
Well, that's
Well, it could.
here's
It could happen.
here's the deal with that, and
Dang.
Yeah, it could.
that,
Am I mean, did I say something?
Oh
wrong?
no.
No.
Okay.
Now,
Gummy's got my back.
No, I'm expressing that I've shared a lot of those views of the Old Testament
yeah.
that are, you don't know
Yeah.
what to do with sometimes. That's all.
Yeah.
And magic is certainly a part of that too.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, there's-
But even then, that is actually in defense of those who are loyal to him, because once you have a bad apple, it goes south really fast. And then the more people, in other words, like for example, if you have gangrene on your little finger, if you don't cut that sucker off pretty soon, you're gone. So in order to protect those who he can protect, he has to take care of those who aren't.
Yeah, I just feel like from an ethical point of view, I think it's just stronger to continue to love and protect that person regardless.
And he did, if you look throughout the expanse of the Bible,
But now-
going into the New Testament.
Did he, or is he jealous, killing people?
Well, remember, jealousy is in providing for those
sorry.
that he can take care of.
George, our magic is not working on you, man.
No, not trying. Not trying. I love.
That's good. That's
well, you
good.
know what? Those are great questions, George.
It
thank
is.
you.
They're really great.
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Think of it this way. If you're in the military right now, all right, and you're fighting on enemy soil, if one of your people all of a sudden turns their guns back on you and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm with ISIS now," you can either choose to take him out or let him gun down your fellow people who are loyal to your cause.
Coming
No,
from
I-
Marine,
Yeah.
he's out.
Right. Exactly. It's
There's no-
that mentality.
I mean, that metaphor, I get it. I just feel like from a much softer, less abrasive metaphor, where someone's just maybe, they're not buying into the book here.
Well, but
Or now we're casting them off because they're not buying into.
well, now you're thinking of it from a modern 21st century point of view. If you take it to the ancient
myself now.
world, if you take it to the ancient world, if you take it to the ancient world, you're talking about tribal feuds, which means that if you let this one go, if you let this go, he's gonna come back with reinforcements and take out your whole tribe. So you can't think of it from a modern point of view. You have to think of it from the ancient point of view. So
It's a two-sided coin. I believe me. I share, and sometimes I still struggle with those same feelings about it. There's, and it's a whole other theological issue. But there's what Brian touched on last episode about the bloodline of Christ being a huge part of the reason why there was quote unquote a lot of violence, as to take certain things out because of the future of where the bloodline would lead, and Satan knew that and wanted to corrupt it and knew what he had to do in order to.
yeah, absolutely.
So it offers me some solace, some. It doesn't. Believe me, I just think that there's things that I will always not be able to reconcile completely.
But that's good though. You know what? That's one of those things that I actually like,
Yeah.
because it shows that you have deep thoughts in that, and that's
Yeah.
good.
I agree. I do like that.
And that's the. And I know, Aaron, you've shared this a lot too, but that's the part of just wrestling with your salvation.
Yeah.
You know, and just wrestling with your what you believe and why you believe what you believe, and you don't always get those answers. But it's so important to realize that why you believe what you believe, and wrestle through that. And you may not understand it, and it takes a lot of time. I've been a Christian a long time, and my faith is just exploded in the past 6 years. But it's taken me to get serious about it. It's taken me to say, just not accepting the pat answers. Because it was just, it's just the way it is. Well, it isn't just the way it is. It's like, why is it that way?
Yeah.
And that's what's really important, and to realize that why do these things happen? Why is life such a bitch sometimes? Excuse my expression, but it is.
Steven.
Well, I mean, I'm
No, I'm
telling
with you.
Bob.
No, I like where you're going with
I
this.
don't want to be crude
It's
about
raw.
it, but it's
You're making a good
raw,
point.
and it's the way it is. But you know what? Life is raw.
Yeah. I'm telling Barb.
No, I like it though.
Yeah, it's
Specifically,
real. It's real.
in Genesis, where I think Brian mentioned it, the seed between the woman and what is enmity? Is that what it is?
The enmity with the seed of the woman and of, whatever you want to call them, the enemy,
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
Which has to do with the bloodline all the way to Christ and the war that exists, which ties back around to magic, which it was taught to a lot of the people
It was.
from the fallen ones.
Absolutely.
So to tie it back around.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to rapture. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Actually, that's tied back in later again. Anyway,
So we're going from the craft, and we're going to the movie Chucky. Is where we're going next.
Oh,
So I like this.
nice.
Chucky Voodoo?
Yes,
Yeah, it was.
exactly. That's the next one is voodoo. A traditional Afro-Haitian religion is a world-encompassing philosophy, medicine, justice, and religion. Its fundamental principle is that everything is spirit. Humans are spirit who inhabit the visible world. The unseen world is populated by Iwa, spirits, Miste, mysteries, Anzavib, the invisible, Zanj, angels, and the spirits of ancestors and the recently deceased. All these spirits are believed to live in a mythic land called Janine, a cosmic, quote-unquote, Africa. The God of the Christian Bible is understood to be the creator of both the universe and the spirits. The spirits were made by God to help him govern humanity and the natural world.
So voodoo is way more like BA in the movies. Like when you read the definition like that, it sounds kind of wimpy.
Right?
Yeah, right. I'm like, where's the dolls that we stick pins in, and and the curse part, yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. If you had a Wiccan and a voodoo guy next to each other, there's no doubt who's going to win.
Oh yeah.
Wow, I didn't know they believed in the Bible, though.
Yeah, in fact, here, let me continue. The primary goal and activity of voodoo is to sevi iwa, serve the spirits, to offer prayers and perform various devotional rites directed at God and particular spirits in return for health, protection, and favor. Spirit possession plays an important role in Afro-Haitian religion, as it does in many other world religions. During religious rites, believers sometimes enter a trance-like state in which they may eat and drink, perform stylized dances, give supernaturally inspired advice to people, or perform medical cures or special physical feats. These acts exhibit the incarnate presence of the Iwa within the entranced devotee. Voodoo ritual activity, e.g., prayer, song, dance, and gesture, is aimed at refining and restoring balance and energy in relationships between people and the spirits of the unseen world.
Speaking in tongues.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a Pentecost revival.
Well, actually, if you a lot of this in the Catholic Church too.
To a degree,
To a degree,
you're going to see
yes.
a lot more of it in the charismatic side.
Well, I can see that too, but I know like my wife was raised Russian, and they talk about the evil eye.
Yes.
So this is probably right in.
You know what? I was actually going to incorporate that. I just didn't have room.
Well, I got it.
but
that's
the evil eye is very prevalent across all the ancient cultures.
correct.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because we use it in just like slang terms over here.
The all-seeing eye?
Yeah. Well, no. The evil eye. The evil
The
eye.
evil eye.
The evil. Yeah. The evil eye in ancient culture. Okay. Well, I'll touch on it a little bit. In a lot of ancient cultures, the evil eye is literally supposed to be a sorcery that is used, and you can invoke curses through your eyes to people.
Right.
Men don't have that, do they?
Unfortunately, it's mostly a ladylike property.
That's usually women.
Just joking.
No, but it is across, and if you think about it, if people are sitting around, their wife might walk by and, oh, she gave me the evil eye, right? So for us in the West, we just use it as a slang term, but in the ancient cultures, it's very real.
So is that like blasphemy if we were to go to Haiti into a voodoo, I don't know, village?
Only if you have fealty to their religion.
Fealty?
Devotion.
Oh, so if I say, why are you giving me the evil eye, they won't be like, that's blasphemy.
Oh, no,
Stone
no.
him.
They will tell you right away and apologize and say, oh, no, we're not giving you the evil eye. Because
They would take it
to them, it's
reverence.
Yeah, to the old cultures, it's very real. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Unless you're a foreigner walking up and they think that, you're just looking down on them, they might be like, oh, yeah, this is the evil eye. Dr. Heiser did an episode recently on the evil eye.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and you'll find that the older religions and cultures very much consider it to be a real thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very real.
Let me finish with the quotation here. Voodoo is an oral tradition practiced by extended families that inherit familial spirits, along with the necessary devotional practices from their elders. In the cities, local hierarchies of priestesses or priests, Manbo and Ugan, children of the spirits, Unsi, and ritual drummers, I'm not going to pronounce that, comprise more formal societies or congregations. Society? In these congregations, knowledge is passed on through a ritual of initiation, kanzo, I think it's a Japanese word, in which the body becomes the site of spiritual transformation. There is some regional differences in ritual practice across Haiti and branches of the religion, including Rada, Dom, Ibo, Nago, Dorio, Manding, Petwo, and Congo. There is no centralized hierarchy, no single leader, and no official spokesperson, but various groups sometimes attempt to create such official structures. There are also secret societies called Bizango or Sampwell that perform a religion judicial, thank you, function. So it's very much, it's been passed down for a very long time. Voodoo, hoodoo, juju, however you want to call it. It's been passed down through generation after generation through ancient African descent. So very, very real. Ask Chucky.
All right.
Yeah. So from the Christian point of view, though, is it? I mean, it's bad. It's just.
Well, I mean, because of colonization, a lot of them actually are Christian. That's the weird part. Now, here's where it gets a little bit weird. Okay, so is that they actually do have a relationship with the Catholic Church to a degree.
Yes.
So, not all of actually even the current pope, not all the popes agree with that. I think they're using it more as a way as to try to pull them into the faith rather than the acceptance. But they do have a slight relationship with it. Like I said, I think it's more of a ministry thing than it is anything. But yeah,
I want to know what George's gonna say.
Well, I don't know. My mind was just blown when you said that. I'm like, I don't know anything anymore. So,
I know we have a guy in our congregation from Brazil, and this weighs heavily on him because he's seen, practicing Christians that also embrace voodoo on how it just can't coexist because of the black magic part of it. It's sort of like you're picking two sides of the fence, and you just can't really do that. They don't. Like after hours, you're basically almost Satan worship. You're wishing ill will, or you're praying to other gods, even though you don't know you are.
Yeah.
He says it's devastating to his family over there. He just kind of tears them apart.
Well, and despite what a lot of people say, because a lot of people are like, well, we're it's like white magic. We're trying to benefit people and invoke blessing, but despite what you might say, there is a lot of cursing. There's a lot of ill health. There's a lot of, I mean, anytime you're chopping a chicken's head off, and creating voodoo dolls, it can't be a good thing. So
I mean, there's a darkness to some of it.
yeah,
And just being like, I know, even as a believer myself, I've been in New Orleans and things like this. You get around it, it's like you feel it.
oh yeah,
I mean, you really feel it, and it's like, whoa, this is like, and it's like I'm repelled by it. I mean, I don't have any desire to be a part of it, but I feel the oppression of it on me. Just to say it, it's like, wow, this is pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
But you can't help giving if it swings, though.
Oh, hell. Hey.
You wanna?
Yeah, it's fascinating because it is very, very prevalent, and I mean, I've had just a minimal bit of exposure to it, just from knowing a few people that were involved in it. So I haven't seen the actual practices of it, but from what I have seen, I wouldn't go near it.
Voodoo, to my knowledge, goes very deep into the spiritual realm. So much so that it's spearheaded by witch doctors and stuff. And I know there are certain towns in Africa that people are really afflicted by what goes on spiritually, as they're being told to go find people who are considered to be albino, where they lack the pigmentation, and an African American, or not American rather, an African will lack pigmentation, and they look to be white. They anyone who's albino will have red eyes, and they say, oh, albinos, they have the red eyes, and they go back and forth, and that's because oftentimes they're blind. So the witch doctors, they say that the people who are albino are possessed because of their eyes, and to go find them and attack them, and to come back with whatever it is that they can, their body parts. They'll go hunt someone down and come back with their arms and give them to the witch doctor, because that's what they request. They pay money for them.
Yeah.
They literally will burn their body parts and turn them into ashes and things, and sacrifices, and it just wreaks havoc throughout the towns. Children who.
And that's from the older world too, from the older African societies.
Yep. And it's very, very prevalent to this day.
Mm.
Yeah, they actually have like sanctuaries, if you will, where there's people protecting them, and the albinos move in and basically protect. So it's just like one housing system for albinos, but it's very dangerous because
That's
will
crazy.
come try to harvest the albino. It's
Right.
pretty crazy.
That's said, man. I mean, if you think about it, when you think about like harvesting and poaching, you think of like rhinos and elephants. You never think of a person.
Yeah, that's sad. Yeah, because they're young. Yeah, I mean they're all young there because it's relatively, you didn't survive
Right.
as an albino until these protection started coming. But yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yeah. Kind of creepy.
I wonder from the outside, the Christian perspective, all these other religions, if they look at the extreme charismatic movement, say, those people are crazy magicians. Like, they're just they're screaming, they're jumping around, they're slaying people by blowing on them.
And they're handling rattlesnakes.
They're handling rattlesnakes, you name it. You know what I mean? And sometimes, you could almost say pronouncing curses. So I wonder if there's other outside cultures who look at ours and say, or at least that one,
Yeah.
not necessarily Orthodox Christianity.
And even just coming in kind of agnostic, and not being a fence sitter, I notice that a lot, and that is, I notice that people that have strong faith, and it could just be different Christianities, and just even like most recently, like it was a Jehovah's Witness, having criticisms of the Catholic Church, and again, thinking the whole notion of holy water and all that, just he found that he was criticizing that, found it he found it very strange, found it very odd. But again, me kind of sitting on the fence and like, well, you know what, they'll say the same, they have the same critiques of being Jehovah's Witness, maybe about excommunication, or we might have to say the same thing about Jewish people not eating pork or whatnot. So I feel like when anybody that has strong faith, I feel like when you look outside of it, you start to find things strange when it's not your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And you even see a little bit of that in as far as cultural differences go. If you look at the older denominations like Orthodoxy, though there's slight culture changes back and forth, not drastic, but for example, if you look at Grecian Orthodox, their fasting is very, very vegan. Okay, but then if you go over to Romania, part of their fasting, hey, you're allowed to drink beer. So, which makes me really want to be part of Romania. But
why is it in religions, Juice, does it the most, powerful God Almighty, the world's deity, has such a concern about our dietary
as far as
practices here.
As far as fasting goes,
yeah, just say fasting. Even during Easter and stuff, when you're not supposed to eat meat and you're supposed to eat fish. Why is he drawing? And this isn't my joke, but why draw a line when you're a creator of all things? Why are you drawing a line into Deli Alley? Why do you even care?
That one's actually pretty in depth. We'll do a whole episode on that.
Whole another day.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because that's
There's
actually
a reason why.
that's a
huge
huge.
statement.
That's a large topic. That's actually and it's a good topic. It's a very good topic. Yeah, it's very political, and it varies from denomination to denomination. But the reasons are good. So that's very encompassing. So we'll do an episode on that.
So you'll have to invite me back for that one then.
Our magic's not working.
Nope. Nope. So guys, add it to our list. Fasting.
Actually, a good time to do that would be
Lent.
around February when Lent begins.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
Christmas or the holiday.
We are no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, actually,
After the
actually, if you go to the Orthodox faith, there is a fasting period just prior to Christmas.
Yes.
It's a short period.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fasting period that if you go to the Orthodox calendar, there's actually a lot of fasting days that are involved in there.
Almost half the year.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
the Ezekiel thing? Is that thing you're talking about, or
No. What it really boils down to is the whole purpose of fasting is to deprive yourself of so much to deprive yourself, but to take your focus off off you and then put it more to God.
Okay.
More to Yahweh.
Okay. Yeah.
I gotta
Well,
disappear.
the whole idea of a fast is that you weaken the body to strengthen your spirit.
Correct.
So that's to simplify it.
Can't put it any better than that.
in a nutshell?
And that kind of brings us to my favorite topic of different magics.
Oh no.
This is what I'm looking forward to.
Me too.
Alchemy.
Alchemy.
I know some company that name.
Where's
Al-
our dum dum?
Right.
I need a soundboard for my next episode. Like a horn, maybe an idea song, ding, and then
There we go.
that'd be my role.
George, you work on that.
All right.
So
He's a prop man.
I find alchemy fascinating since I was a kid. Because I mean, when you combine science with magic, how can you go wrong? Right? So, here, to quote this, alchemy was the name given in Latin Europe in the 12th century to an aspect of thought that corresponds to astrology, which is apparently an older tradition. Both represent attempts to discover the relationship of man to the cosmos and to exploit that relationship to his benefit. The first of these objectives may be called scientific, the second, technological. Astrology is concerned with man's relationship to the stars. Alchemy with terrestrial nature. But the distinction is far from absolute, since both are interested in the influence of the stars on terrestrial events. Moreover, both have always been pursued in the belief that the processes human beings witness in heaven and on earth manifest the will of the Creator, and, if correctly understood, will yield the key to the Creator's intentions. That both astrology and alchemy may be regarded as fundamental aspects of thought is indicated by their apparent universality. It is notable, however, that the evidence is not equally substantial at all times and places. Evidence from ancient Middle America, Aztecs and Mayans, is still almost non-existent. Evidence from India is tenuous, and from ancient China, Greece, and Islamic islands is only relatively more plentiful. A single manuscript of some 80,000 words is the principal source for the history of Greek alchemy. Chinese alchemy is largely recorded in about 100 books that are part of the Taoist canon. Neither Indian nor Islamic alchemy has ever been collected, and scholars are thus dependent for their knowledge of the subject on occasional allusions in work of natural philosophy and medicine, plus a few specifically alchemical works. Nor is it really clear that what alchemy was or is. The word is a European one derived from Arabic, but the origin of the root word, chem, is uncertain. Words similar to it have been found in most ancient languages with different meanings, but conceivably somehow related to alchemy. In fact, the Greeks, Chinese, and Indians usually referred to what Westerners call alchemy as the art, or by terms denoting change or transmutation. So in a nutshell, alchemy is the idea that you can transmute one substance to another substance, like let's say lead to gold. And it was also always a pursuit to create the Philosopher's Stone, which could grant you those abilities, plus help you create the elixir of life. So
So now we went from the craft to Chucky, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Those of you with the yokai.
There we go. All right, I'm following you.
But here's the cool thing. I've always enjoyed the study of historical alchemy because there are a lot of historical figures that are integrated into those legends. For example, I'll bring up who's not in the slides, Nicholas Flamel. And Nicholas Flamel, according to some ancient records, was around for around 300 years.
No, he wasn't.
What's that?
Was he alive 300 years?
According to legend and a few writings that were around.
Okay. No, he
So-
wasn't.
There was.
When
not-
was this?
I'm not
50,
saying he was.
60 years tops. Okay.
I'm not saying he was.
All right.
But there are writings from a charity. I'll try to dig it up because I didn't create slides for that one. There was a charity set up in Europe that he would give to. In fact, to this day, his grave actually is sitting and is inscribed with the charities that he would give to. So he was a philanthropist. But for 300 years, he kept giving to the same charity, which is interesting because every year his name was recorded as giving to that charity. So,
All right.
take it with a grain of salt, but
what was this charity doing?
well, it was
We know.
after 300 years, it was dissolved. I believe it was to an orphanage, but so it's very interesting. Very interesting. I didn't prepare for that one in particular, but he's one that's brought up a lot in legend as well.
Okay.
So
But Rockefeller's still giving money to charities.
See, that's what I was hoping.
But
I was
this is the
hoping there was
Middle
going to be
Ages.
some.
This is the Middle Ages, though.
Well, that's a modern day, sort of.
Right. But there was also there was the Comte Saint Germain. Let me read this real quick because he fascinates me a bit.
I have a question for you when you're done.
Oh, shoot, go ahead.
Good. No, go ahead.
Okay. It was a European courtier with an interest in science and the arts. He achieved prominence in Europe high society of the mid-1700s. In order to deflect inquiries as to his origins, he would invent fantasies, such as that he was 500 years old, leading Voltaire to sarcastically dub him the Wonder Man. Not just Voltaire, but also Casanova chimed in. His birth and background are obscure, but towards the end of his life, he claimed that he was a son of Prince Francis II, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Rancacci, of Transylvania. His name has occasionally caused him to be confused with Claude Louis, Comte de Saint-Germain, a noted French general. According to David Hunter, the Count contributed some of the songs to La Inconstance de Lusa, an opera performed at the Haymarket Theatre in London on all but one of the Saturdays from the 9th of February to the 20th of April, 1745. Later in letter of December that same year, Horace Walpole mentions the Count Saint-Germain as being arrested in London on suspicion of espionage. but was released without charge. The other day they seized an odd man, this is a quote by him, who goes by the name of Count Saint Germain. He has been here 2 years, and will not tell who he is or whence, but profess that he does not go by his right name. He sings, plays on the violin wonderfully.
You're getting the evil eye over there.
I did it on purpose. Composes, is mad, and not very sensible. He is called an Italian, a Spaniard, a Pole, a somebody that married a great fortune in Mexico, and ran away with her jewels to Constantinople. A priest, a fiddler, a vast nobleman, the Prince of Wales, has had unsatiated curiosity about him, but in vain. However, nothing has made out against him. He is released, and what convinces me that he is not a gentleman stays here and talks as being taken for a spy.
Oh,
So he was definitely an interesting person.
now we're talking about magic, but I'm hearing with alchemy that seems to be a lot of science.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so where's the supernatural? Where's the deity power coming in when we're talking about alchemy?
Well, hold on. That's a good
sorry.
question. Let me continue.
Sorry, my friend.
The Count gave 2 private musical performances in London in April and May 1749. On one such occasion, Lady Jemima York described how she was very entertained by him, or at him, the whole time. I mean, the oddness of his manner, which is impossible not to laugh at. Otherwise, you know he is very sensible and
It is better
well-bred
with your
in
accent.
conversation. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
She continued, He is an odd creature, and the more I see him, the more curious I am to know something about him. He is everything with everybody. He talks ingeniously with Mr. Ray, philosophy with Lord Willoughby, and is gallant with Miss York, Miss Carpenter, and all the young ladies. But the character and philosopher is what he seems to pretend to, and to be a good deal conceited of. The others are put on to comply with les manières du monde, but that you are supposed his real characteristic. And I can't but fancy he is great pretender in all kinds of science, as well as that he really has acquired an uncommon share in some. That's an actual quote from her.
Oh.
So, Walpole reports that Saint Germain spoke Italian and French with the greatest facility, though it was evident that neither was his language. He understood Polish, and soon learned to understand English and talk it a little, but Spanish or Portuguese seemed his natural language. Walpole concludes that the Count was a man of quality who had been in or designed for the church. He was too great a musician not to have been famous if he had not been a gentleman. Walpole describes the Count as pale, with extremely black hair and a beard. He dressed magnificently and had several jewels, and was clearly receiving large remittance, but no other figure. So he was in all these different. This is the interesting part. If you look at these different quotes, he traveled around royalty all over Europe. So it's fascinating. From England to France to Spain to Portugal and he was fluent in all the languages.
I can't but help feel like he's a fraud, though.
Disassociated with
Don't know why.
Well, here's I'll throw this one in. Giacomo Casanova describes in his memoirs several meetings with, quote, celebrated and learned impostor, unquote. Of his first meeting in Paris in 1757, he writes, "The most enjoyable dinner I had was with Madame de Robert Gaguet, who came with the most famous adventurer, known by the name of the Count de Saint-Germain. This individual, instead of eating, talked from the beginning of the meal to the end, and I followed his example in one respect, as I did not eat, but listened to him with the greatest intention. It may safely be said that as a conversationalist, he was unequaled." Unquote. And then it says that Saint Germain gave himself out for a marvel and always aimed at exciting amazement, which he often succeeded in doing. He was a scholar, linguist, musician, and chemist, good-looking, and a perfect ladies' man. For a while,
He has con man written all over. Right?
he gave them paint and cosmetics. He flattered them.
Sounds like
Not
Trump.
that he would make them young again, which he must confess was beyond him, but their beauty would be preserved by means of a wash, which he said cost him a lot of money, but which he gave away freely. He had contrived to gain the favor of Madame de Pompadour, who, I mean, if you know who Madame de Pompadour is, she was
Who doesn't?
huge across royalty, had spoken about him to the king, for whom he had made a laboratory, in which the monarch, Amateur de Boron, tried to find a little pleasure or distraction, at all events, by making dyes. The king had given him a suite of rooms at Chambord and 100,000 francs for the construction of a laboratory. And according to Saint Germain, the dyes discovered by the king would have a material beneficial influence on the quality of French fabrics. You're right there. He does sound like a salesman. But
So again, I again, not really being too familiar with alchemy. Where's besides the power of persuasion and some science? Is there really what magic or is there?
so pretty much the mystical is combined with magic.
Okay.
You can't define it as one culture because alchemy comes from China, it comes from Arabic lands, it comes from Middle Eastern, it comes from, I mean, it's from all over the place. So different people would try to do different things. For example, one group, let me think, I think it was actually over in Damascus, was trying to figure out how to transmute your soul into another living being or creature. So
We're back to Chucky.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So whereas other ones would try to extend your life and create the elixir of life, other ones try to transmute different metals into different substances. So you can't pin any one practice down, but all of it. What kind of differentiates alchemy from standard magic is that they try to combine it with scientific practices.
Right. Okay.
But can I call a modern day chemist an alchemist?
Some would. We're going to get to one.
Like a pharmacist or something like that. What you just described to me, transferring things, messing with genes, to me sounds like genetically modifying things or GMOs or trying to make something that's innately natural, but creating it in an unnatural way now.
Okay, this kind
Right.
of hits in my world a little bit because I do natural soaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I make them. And what happens to them sometimes, they're made with essential oils, natural ingredients.
yeah.
And some of these natural ingredients they do some really unusual things.
Yeah.
And it's really weird. Like I do one of my soaps is a thieves oil soap. So we heard of thieves oil. It's a mixture. It basically becomes almost like an antiseptic, I guess is the best way to say it. The combination of it. It's a natural one.
But are you a better thief afterwards?
Well, the reason why it's called thieves is because the grade robbers back in the plague lathered themselves and they didn't die. So they stole them. So that's the story behind it. But I heard that was a made up story by a person who wanted to promote their product. So boo-hoo with that one. But nonetheless, it does things.
Okay.
And there's been some healings and miraculous things that happened with it that I've made, and it's really weird because, the unfortunate thing is I can't tout those things
Right.
because of the laws of this country and dealing with the FDA and things like that. I can't do that.
Yeah, you won't get approval.
Well, no, that would cost me $120,000 pharmaceutical.
It comes
Right,
shut you down.
Shut me down, right? Exactly. So
You terrorist.
it's. I mean, I've seen it actually happen. There's these natural ingredients that cure people. of different-
Homeopathic stuff and
things like this. So you have to be.
Wait, you can't use the word cure.
Well, you see it.
You see dead
but,
people.
But the bottom line is it's soap, and that's just really what it is. But the thing is, I mean, like I've had a few recent ones where like really,
Yeah.
it's like so it does almost seem like it's sort of magical, kind of.
I mean, it could
No.
be. That
It
could
be in
yeah.
how you put it in perspective, but I have to be careful with that.
Well,
Interesting.
yeah.
The Essenes.
yeah.
Were you going to eventually get to them? I don't know. But didn't they use a lot of essential oils for healing and all that?
Yeah, we're not gonna have time in this episode, but yeah.
Could we call them alchemists? Is that what?
Yeah, you.
I'm having
potentially
a
could.
hard time
You potentially could.
trying to define what I could call an alchemist.
Well, see, that's the trouble. Is okay. So an alchemist, because of all the different diversities inside of alchemy, it's hard to pin it down to one particular practice. Here's kind of what defines an alchemist. You combine science with spirituality. That's pretty much what it comes down to. So you can call that different kind of magics or whatever, but it really comes down to using sorcery, however you define that, with science. That's really what defines an alchemist.
Do you have like a modern day guy that you would say
We
is
are.
someone
We are.
close?
We are. But before, I have one more quote.
Steve.
Yeah, or Steve. I have one more quote for Saint Germain, and that will end his segment. And I added this because it gives a little credence to him. So, quote: "The old Countess Vergiorgi, who 50 years earlier had accompanied her husband to Venice, where he had the appointment of ambassador, lately met Saint Germain at Madame de Pompadour's. For some time she watched the stranger with signs of the greatest surprise, in which was mixed not a little fear. Finally, unable to control her excitement, she approached the Count more out of curiosity than in fear. 'Will you have the kindness to tell me,' said the Countess, 'whether your father was in Venice about the year 1710? "'No, madame,' replied the Count, quite unconcerned. 'It is very much longer since I lost my father, but I myself was living in Venice at the end of that last and the beginning of this first century. I had the honor to pay your court then, and you were kind enough to admire a few barcaroles of my composing, which I was used to sing together.' "'Forgive me, but that is impossible. The Comte de Saint Germain I knew in those days was at least 45 years old, and you, at the outset, are that age at present.' "'Madame,' replied the Count, smiling, 'I am very old. But then you must be nearly 100 years old. That is not impossible.' And the Count recounted to Madame Georgie a number of familiar little details which had reference in common to both to their sojourn in the Venetian states. He offered, if she still doubted him, to bring back to her memory certain circumstances and remark which. "'No, no,' interrupted the old ambassadress. 'I am already convinced, for all that you are a most extraordinary man. A devil!' "'For pity's sake,' exclaimed Saint Germain in a thundering voice, 'no such names.' He appeared to be seized with a cramp-like trembling in every limb, and left the room immediately. I mean to get to know this peculiar man more intimately." And that was actually from their meeting, where at both times he was the same age from when she had known him when she was younger. So that adds a little bit of credence, because that actually is a historical quote from the courts. I'm not saying that this is 100% true. I'm not saying it wasn't his father. But according to the account, that may have been him. So the one modern alchemist I will bring up is Sir Isaac Newton.
Ooh.
No.
Oh, yes.
No.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Sir Isaac Newton was an alchemist. In fact, if
In a
anything...
spiritual sense, he was an alchemist?
No, he was an alchemist. In fact, he may have been more of an alchemist than anybody else that I can bring up as an alchemist. Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
All right, elaborate.
I'll say, so quote, this is from biography.com. Newton wrote an estimated 1 million words in alchemy. According to Vauquel, many people don't know about Newton's alchemaic work, but it was hugely important because it occupied a large part of his intellectual attention. Much like Newton's groundbreaking contributions to numerous branches of science, his studies of alchemy spanned decades and were extensive in focus and application. Evidence suggests that alchemy influenced everything from Newton's discoveries about the spectral properties of white light to his understanding of the nature of matter in terms of tiny particles. Of course, a portion of Newton's alchemical experiments did focus on metallurgy and the transmutation of one metal into another. What's also remarkable about this particular recipe are Newton's annotations. As he copied the recipe, Newton corrected some of the measurements, noting in brackets where he believed the proportions were incorrect. In addition, on the back of the manuscript, Newton wrote notes in English for one of his own laboratory experiments for distilling a spirit from lead ore. So while the manuscript itself neither explains how sulfic mercury could be used to create the Philosopher's Stone, nor concludes that Newton tried to create a sulfic mercury, the profound impact that alchemy had on Newton's studies is undeniable. That's from biography.com. So Newton is perhaps the best example of an alchemist. Pretty stunning, right?
I'm still a bit cloudy. Just because, was Jesus an alchemist when he rubbed mud on blind people's eyes? Was God an alchemist when he told people
But Jesus
to bathe
came
into...
from the Essenes, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
But was God an alchemist when he told people to bathe into the Nile River 7 times?
There actually, see, I didn't include that, but there actually is a reference to that being a possible reference to Christian alchemy. I didn't include that, but yeah, it's fairly interesting.
Yeah, because my wife has Lyme disease and like medicine doesn't work on her, but if you really use herbs and stuff like that enhance your body's defense mechanisms and lower inflammation, it really helps her, and I've never seen her so good. So that's practicing alchemy, really, because we believe God provided these herbs.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of spirituality. So I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, potentially.
And really all it comes down to, once again, is it's combining your spiritual life with science.
So Christians can be alchemists.
Well, Sir Isaac Newton was a noted Christian, so yeah, you could say that.
But we can't say it's necessarily a bad thing, right?
Cannot.
Okay.
All right.
So it just and I find those fascinating.
Yeah, I always thought the old, like the example I gave where Moses was competing against Pharaoh's court.
Yeah.
I always thought they were the alchemists. They were using whatever science to create the illusion of miracles, but they weren't actual miracles.
Exactly, illusions, right.
Yeah.
It seems like that line could get pushed pretty far and back and forth and back and forth. You know what I mean? Because you could almost call a bartender an alchemist, because some of the stuff that he mixes, he gives to the people, intoxicates the people.
And it makes you feel magical.
Right?
Yeah. But does it have to be tied to, like, astrology? They look and maybe they say, well, God provided this under these conditions, but at that point the scientist wouldn't be an alchemist because he's just saying 1 + 1 is 2. You know what I mean? It's not tied back to the creator. Maybe that's the difference.
Now it's
Possibly.
philosophy. Ultimately, you
Brace yourself, George.
you could dive into that, because ultimately alchemy does impart a lot of philosophy. So you gonna say something?
Oh no.
There's a lot of wiggle room, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taken aback by the commonalities between all of these magical practices and Christianity in a way. Even back to the evil eye, on God, on Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he's saying, bad thoughts, if you commit murder in your head, you're actually committing murder. And I feel like the evil eye, and even Wiccan, that whole karma aspect. I do feel like it is all very similar still, and I can see how people can easily switch from one religion to another and still feel like they haven't missed a beat, really. Or at least take parts of Christianity and go down that rabbit trail a little bit.
I'm questioning whether or not alchemy deserves a portion in the magic segment.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't get any magical part of it, except the guy that lived 300 years or whatever.
But I don't feel like alchemy deserved a portion in our magic segment today. I just feel like that's more science. And again, I like what Mike said. Even about the herbs. He feels like that his God provided that for him, and I don't know. In a sense, maybe provide some spirituality, but I don't know. I'm hearing more science. I don't know. I don't see anything that's.
Well, like I said, it does. There is incorporations going into different kinds of alchemy of using your soul to transmute things and transference of soul and mind. Kind of like going back to your whole Chucky thing.
All right.
So
What about cloning?
that's true. Yeah, there actually is an element. It's not heavily played, but there's a little bit of shape shifting, but not really heavily inside alchemy. More of the transmutation of soul. But what was that?
Cloning?
Not so much cloning, but
What is alchemy then? What is today? What is
which culture?
ours from our point of view?
Oh,
the
in
Christian
America,
point of view, then.
the last big one would have been Sir Isaac Newton. Although there are still alchemists today, but if you get to the deeper alchemical practices, there is transmuting of souls from body to body. There is, and in some of the older, more ancient, darker systems of alchemy, there is the invocation of some spirits as well.
But actually, if you think about it, like even the Heiser podcast that was recently, when he talked about Nar, there's some of that in there. There's some of that that's involved in that too.
Right.
Where you can kill people and different things,
Right.
the transference of souls.
Join us for the rest of the conversation in part 2.